Hello and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we're back with another week of NFL predictions. And after a very confusing, crazy, and wild week one, where a
And let's
lot
see
of
if we can
things
do a
that we
little bit better
expected to
this time.
happen didn't happen. Yeah, let's try to do a little bit better than we did last week. So, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it. We've got another interesting slate of games here, and we'll see if we can predict some upsets a little bit better this time.
Yeah, and the reason why you say that is because last week both of us went 8, 7, and 1 because of the tie between the Colts and the Texans.
Oh my gosh,
So
that game.
don't know what we're going to do with that one. So mark it up as a tie. But without further ado, let's jump into week two with the Thursday night matchup of the Kansas City Chiefs and the LA Chargers. Both teams coming off of big wins last week. Patrick Mahomes looked awesome against the Cardinals. And no Tyreek Hill, no problem. And Justin Herbert and the Chargers, they're exactly who we thought they were. They were going to be high flying, throwing the ball around the field. Not having Keenan Allen hurts, but with how good Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs looked last week, and it's an Arrowhead, I'll take Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way with the loss of Keenan Allen and just sort of the way they passed the ball last week for the Chargers. I'm not sure how that's going to translate into this week. Mike Williams kind of disappeared again, which has kind of been a recurring act of him. He's either
That's
massive
just
or
Mike Williams.
non-existent.
Welcome to the
Yeah,
ultimate boomer bust guy.
yeah. But as you said, the Chiefs look fantastic with or without Tyreek Hill. I think they're going to continue to pass the ball really well. I don't think 6 passing touchdowns is going to be reachable. But I think they're going to be just fine. And in Arrowhead, I've got the Chiefs.
Yeah, it'll be a grudge match, and it'll be a good Thursday night game. And moving on to the Sunday slate, we have the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns. Gross. Not a great matchup. If you just look at the quarterbacks, it's already not a great matchup. Jacoby Brissett and Joe Flacco. But
Not two guys you expected to be at the helms of,
yeah,
of those two teams necessarily.
but due to some timely kicking, the Browns are 1-0, and I think they'll move on to 2-0 in a game at home in front of the dog pound against the Jets team that just doesn't look good with Joe Flacco QB.
Yeah,
It's
realistically,
Joe
I think what's
Flacco
gonna
QB in the year of our Lord 2022. I mean, come on. I think that's all I really need to say.
Yeah, realistically, I think what's going to win the Browns this game is the run game. Nick Chubb looked great, and Kareem Hunt actually got the majority of sort of the touchdown opportunities in the last game. And I don't see the Jets being able to stop that, as well as the fact that you're right, their offense hasn't looked great or didn't look great in that week one. So realistically, I think the Browns can slide past them pretty easily here at home.
The next matchup on hand is the Washington Commanders taking on the Detroit Lions. The Washington Commanders actually pulled it out against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Carson Wentz managed to do a thing and win a ball game. And Detroit, on the
He
other
didn't look
hand,
he didn't look great, but he did enough.
he did it. He did enough to win. On the other hand, the Detroit Lions put up 35 against the Philadelphia Eagles, and this team is going to give some teams some problems. I like what the Detroit Lions bring to the table. Dan Campbell running through walls, biting off legs. So I think Detroit wins this game at home.
Yeah, I love what I saw out of Detroit week one. I mean, that offense was miles above where I thought they were going to be, even though they didn't necessarily, like, Jared Goff didn't look like a mastermind at QB or anything, but they didn't necessarily need him to. The way that they worked stuff around and moved the ball in different ways, they didn't need him to be some sort of high flying deep ball passing QB. And I like more of the same this week. I think DeAndre Swift got off to a great start, and I think they're going to be able to continue working the ball through him a lot, especially with that new and improved offensive line. And I think the Lions are going to be able to take this one at home too. I would love to see them get a strong win here.
An NFC South matchup is the next one that we're going to go over, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints. With these two teams, you can never really tell what's going to happen. And although Tampa Bay on Sunday Night Football looked pretty good against Dallas, was able to shut them down for the most part.
Their defense looked great, but their offense was, I mean, they moved the ball a lot, but they obviously, as we know,
It's more
kicked a
so what
lot
I
of field
meant.
goals. They kicked a lot of field goals. They really didn't find the end zone very much.
Yeah. Was that more so to Dallas getting good red zone stops or Tampa Bay not coming up when they needed to? That or
Yeah,
the other,
it's
you know.
yeah, it's sort of pick your poison on that one of what you think was actually their problem. But realistically, they didn't look that great. And I actually think, in my opinion, I think the Saints defense is going to have some success against the Bucks here, and I'm going to take a little surprise here and say that Jameis picks up where he left off at the end of their Week 1 matchup, and say that the Saints actually take this one.
You know, I thought we were going to be different on this one. I thought this was going to be a chance where you took the Bucks, but I also take the Saints. It's just something about the Saints versus Tom Brady in a rivalry game like this in New Orleans. I don't know. It's just got an
I
interesting
think we'll
feel
see.
to it.
I just think we'll see a step up from Kamara in his sort of minimalistic role in Week 1, and then the passing game looked actually substantially improved in that
Yeah,
sort of
it really
and
did.
second half, and especially that fourth quarter when they pushed that comeback. So I think they're going to be able to pick up where they left off there.
Yeah, I think they're just able to move and groove with Jarvis and Michael Thomas and Olave and Taysom Hill still there, and they still got Kamara. So the Saints have a good shot, in my opinion, in this game. But then we'll go on to the Carolina Panthers and the New York Giants. And who would have thunk it that the Giants would enter this game undefeated and Carolina isn't? Those are two predictions that we very much got wrong last week. Saquon looks good. Saquon looks really,
Yeah.
really good when he's healthy. I think people just forgot how good he was. And am I crazy for saying that the Giants are going to start 2-0? Because I think they're going to start 2-0.
Realistically, I mean, I don't think you're that crazy. I think the big thing to take a look at this game is going to be the battle of the run games because we didn't see that much out of CMC Week 1. And realistically, I don't feel like they gave him that much in terms of opportunity. But one of the things I think we need to keep an eye on is what does CMC's role look like with Baker at the helm? Because Baker is a different quarterback, these type of quarterback that they've had really previously. So actually, I kind of like the Giants' run game and how it's looked so far compared to the Panthers. And because of the way that the Giants were able to move the ball and actually get their offense going, I'm going to say I don't think you're crazy. I think the Giants have a good chance of starting out 2-0 in this one.
It's gonna be greasy. It's gonna be
Yeah,
ugly. It's not gonna be a fun game to watch on either side. Neither of these teams
yeah. I don't think it's
are
going to be
very
like an
good,
offensive masterclass by
but
each side, but I do like what we've seen out of the Giants so far, except for the fact that their passing game is still questionable. But
if Daniel Jones can like not do what Daniel Jones normally does and like just just be a game
yeah,
manager.
we've
That's
been
all you just
saying
need to
that for a
do.
while.
Just be a game manager. That's like just don't do what Daniel Jones normally does, and the Giants should be fine. But then again, that's
That's here nor there.
it's just a theory. Next game we got are the Patriots and the Steelers. The Steelers last week they won a game that they really should not have won. It was who
No,
wanted
not
to lose
really.
it more, but against them and the Bengals. But they forced Joe Burrow into 5 turnovers, so at least that's a plus side. And on the other side, Bill Belichick had no answer for the Miami Dolphins. This is pretty much what we expected out of New England, a
We
team
were
that just
saying we really don't like the look of that offense, and they kind of just proved us right. Their offensive line looked pretty discombobulated. Their passing game just isn't that good. You saw a lot of guys that didn't necessarily seem to be on the same page. And they're sort of
it's just a little nightmarish all around. They're just stuck
they're not really
in this
good at anything.
quagmire of like where are they going? Are they going anywhere? Or it just they're just stuck in the mud, not really doing much of anything. So I'll take the Steelers.
Yeah, especially with the fact that we have gotten word so far that Najee looks like he's going to be healthy coming into this weekend. And assuming that he is, I'm pretty comfortable in taking the Steelers here. Their offense
Even
just
if
looks
he isn't, I'm
overall.
comfortable taking the Steelers.
Yeah, I just think overall they look a lot better in terms of offense and especially the defense because that if they're able to even keep up a fraction of that turnover production on defense, they're gonna be a team that's gonna be hard to handle for a lot of these teams. So you know what? I think the Steelers take this one pretty easily.
The Indianapolis Colts are heading south to Duval County to take on the Jacksonville
Oh
Jaguars.
man, they're not good at playing in Jacksonville.
Yeah, the Indianapolis Colts have not won at Jacksonville since 2014, and the
Is this
Colts,
gonna be it?
is this going to be it? But they're not doing themselves any favors. They did not look good last week. They looked awful. They
Can someone
tied.
can
They
someone
tied to a
explain to
Texans team
me?
that they had no business even being in a game with. They should have blown them out. It shouldn't have been a contest, but they played down to Houston and it just kind of fell apart.
what I don't understand, and the biggest confusion from that game,
And then
sure, there's
they
things.
cover Regal Blankenship.
Yes,
They
that
cut Hot
was.
Rod.
Hot Rod's had his issues over the last like about year or so, and he's been a little bit on the hot seat. But
Cut
I think
Hot Rod.
missing that game winner really set in stone that.
Dude, but he's nerdy and he's quirky and he wears Spogs and he builds
And
Legos.
I'm sure somebody else will pick him up, but
Future Green Bay
realistically,
Packer in case Mason Crossbar ever decides to hang him up.
one of the things that I don't understand about that game whatsoever is why Ryan Kelly and Matt Ryan could not get their snaps figured out. There was 3 fumbled snaps, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 4.
Too
It
many.
was not
There were
pretty.
too many.
It was awful, in fact. But going into this game, based on what we've seen out of both of these teams week one, man, it's so hard to say that the Jaguars are going to win this game, but
Tim.
history says that the
Tim.
Jaguars are going to win this game. But because of the fact that the Colts managed by a tie, but they did break their week one losing streak, I'm going to say that they break another streak here and manage to shut down Trevor Lawrence enough to squeak out a win in Jacksonville to break another of one of their streaks. Oh, you know what? Maybe they'll break a streak with a tie again.
You
But
know
no,
what?
I have to take the Colts in this one.
You know
My
what,
brain
Tim?
my brain is too based in logic to pick the Jaguars.
Yeah, I'm picking the Colts also, but if they let me down for a second straight week, I'm gonna have a real
Ugh.
hard time picking them going forward.
Yeah,
So,
against literally
redemption,
anybody else.
redemption, Indianapolis, this is your shot. So now we'll go to the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, they looked really good, albeit not a high bar against a Jets team that looked awful. But Lamar Jackson actually looked like a really, really good passer. He beat the Jets with his arm and not his legs. And that's
Yeah.
what people have really been looking for from Lamar. I think it's always been there. It's just taken a bit of time for people to really see that, hey, this guy's more than just a runner and he can actually throw the ball. And
Well, they
then
also had receivers step up. I mean, you obviously saw Bateman sort of step into that wide receiver one. He didn't
Rashad
necessarily have
Bateman's
a massive
breakout
game,
season.
but I mean, he did perform well, and he had that long touchdown there. But especially you talk about guys like Devin
Devin
Duvernay. He really stepped
Duvernay.
into the light and got quite a few receptions there, even when the Jets were really focusing in on Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews did not have a particularly great day.
But that's what you
In
really
this
need to
one,
do is
oh yeah, next man
when your
up. I
star,
mean,
yeah, when your stars aren't going,
you
next
got
man
to
up.
have other guys that can make that separation and get open. But I think the Dolphins will have a
The
little
Dolphins
bit
have guys that
harder.
can get separation and get open.
This is
Tyreek
true.
Hill and Jalen Waddle look as dynamic a duo as ever. It seems like they're going to be able to share that spotlight as the wide receiver 1A and 1B. And it again, this still hinges on Tua's left arm. But Miami's got the Dolphins, and they'll take the ball right up and down the field like nobody's ever seen, and they're going to beat the Ravens. I have the Dolphins winning this game.
And that's perfectly fair. We saw a lot of good things out of the Dolphins week one. I don't share the same opinions,
It's
mainly
about
based
darn
on
time that we had a disagreement
yeah,
here.
exactly. Mainly based on the fact that I don't think that the Dolphins are going to have the same success containing Mark Andrews, as well as the fact that I absolutely hate the Dolphins' run game. And I think that they're going to be forced to be a little bit more one-dimensional. And against a team like the Ravens, I don't think they're going to get away with that. I think that they're going to struggle a little bit offensively. I mean, they'll get points. Don't get me wrong, but they won't have as dynamic of an offense
Yes,
that
Tim,
we'll
that is the
see
goal
out
of
of
an
them
offense to get points.
throughout the game. So I think the Ravens are going to be able to edge this one out at home. But I think it should be a very competitive game.
It should be a competitive game. It's going to be a really big test for the Dolphins. I think they'll pass it.
Oh, I think it's going to be a big test for both teams because I mean you're both
Well,
teams that have to prove yourself
you
as
share
a
the
new look
opposite opinion.
offense.
Yeah, but this one we shouldn't have too hard of a time, disagreeing. I mean, the Falcons and the Rams. It's come on, the Rams at home, bounce back week. They struggled against the Bills. They're going to come out hot. They're going to be angry. They're going to be raring to go, and they're just going to stop the Falcons into submission.
I don't share the dominance, opinion, but I do still think the Rams are going to win. We saw some good things out of the Falcons week one, namely Cordero Patterson. I think that the Falcons are going to be able to get some points up, but I do absolutely agree that we're going to see a major bounce back in the Rams offense in general. Because the Falcons just don't have that defense like the Bills do that absolutely just demolished the Rams other than Cooper Kupp. And I think Cup and other guys are just going to kind of run all over him on offense. So I think the Rams are going to score plenty, but I don't think it's going to be that dominant of a game. But yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of crazy to think that the Rams aren't going to win this one.
With this next NFC West matchup between the Seahawks and the 49ers, about a week ago, if you had like asked me who was going to win, I was going to say 49ers all the way. But then Seattle,
Geno Smith had something to say about
Geno,
that.
Geno Smith didn't write back, and he
No, he
actually
did not.
he had a great game
He
against
was
the Broncos.
extremely solid, but that was the thing. He played smart football. He didn't
He didn't
try to do
force anything.
anything crazy, wild, forcing the ball into crazy pockets or anything.
Stuck to the
He
game
just played
plan,
he just
played
played the
his
game
game.
that was in front of him. Anywhere that he saw somebody, he just went to he made the correct read. And that made him have an extremely
It's almost
efficient
like
game.
football's a really simple game if you're the quarterback. Just
If
look,
you play it
find the
smart,
open guy, and
if
throw it
if
to
you're
him,
able to
you
play
know?
smart and avoid that hero ball. But man, I will say I'm most impressed by. I don't know whether to be most impressed by Seattle's red zone defense or the Broncos' lack of red zone offense. But I mean,
There's definitely something to be said for that.
forcing the fumbles like they did is still particularly impressive.
Well, Tim, it takes two to
Um,
tango, and the 49ers are 0-1 for some
yes,
inexplicable
I
monsoon
mean,
playing field surfaced reason.
I was gonna say I think it's a pretty explicable reason. I think we can explain pretty clearly why they lost, but I don't think that you're gonna see a monsoon in this game as well. Um, so realistically, I think the
Probably not.
49ers, with the likely possibility, I know he's still questionable, with the likely possibility of George Kittle coming back and a more normal playing surface to play on, with this sort of new look offense and whatnot, I think they're going to be much more comfortable, and they're going to be able to push the ball and finish drives a lot better than they were able to in week one. So I've got the 49ers in this one.
Yeah, I'll also take San Francisco. I think it's going to be, again, another close game, another hard fought game.
If Gino wants to
Yeah,
not write back a second time, then I'll stop writing.
yeah, exactly. No point in writing to
We'll
somebody who
see.
doesn't want to write you back. So now the next game should have been an exciting matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys, and then Dak Prescott fractured his hand, and now it's Cooper Rush time. So
To be
Cincinnati
fair,
is,
they didn't look very good even when Dak was still playing.
which is all the more reason for me to be confident in taking the Bengals.
Oh, I am 100% on board with that. The Bengals, despite all the turnovers, still looked really good on offense. They moved the ball a
And
ton. They just turned the ball over a lot.
they
And they
still
still
managed to
realistically
force
should have won
overtime.
that game.
They probably should have,
But what we saw out of
but they
Dallas
didn't.
was a relatively poor run game and a pass game that just looked incredibly one dimensional. They were desperately missing their outside threats. The guys like Amari Cooper, like Michael Gallup, that they are without right now. Obviously, Amari Cooper, they're not going to get back.
Look,
Um,
CD's good, but when the game plan is
CD was
throw it to
two
CD,
receptions
throw it
on
to CD,
11
throw it to CD,
targets.
then like
It seemed like they got the point that maybe they should defend CD, and then he stopped catching the ball. And then there was really
crazy
nothing the
how that
Cowboys could
works.
do. So I don't see that getting any better with Cooper Rush at the helm. So now they're going to have to feed Zeke more and feed Tony Pollard more, which is going to make them even more one dimensional. So I hate this look for the Dallas Cowboys. So it's a really easy choice for me to go with the Bengals.
Yeah, it's not that difficult. And the next matchup we got on hand is the Houston Texans taking on the Denver Broncos. And hey, the Texans are tied for first in the AFC South without winning a game.
Woo! Not a
Woo.
single AFC South team has a win, and two
Yep.
of them played each other.
The 0-1 Houston Texans against the somehow
Surprisingly,
0-1
0 and
Denver,
1.
the surprisingly 0-1 Denver Broncos. But it's a new system for Russell Wilson, new set of weapons, new head coach with Nathaniel Hackett, which I don't know where he learned that coaching, but he didn't learn it in Green Bay.
I was gonna say, I'm looking at you, buddy.
Or you know what? Eh, he may have. He
Does
may he
Matt
may have
LaFleur not like taking sensible timeouts?
he may have gone to the Matt LaFleur school of coaching because reasons. Anyway, I'm sure it'll be a bounce back game for Russ and company. Not that hard of a test against the Texans. I'll pretty easily take the Broncos here.
Yeah, other than Stingley, I don't like a ton of Houston secondary. And I think that the Broncos wide receivers and tight ends are going to be able to, get some separation and have some success against this team, as well as the fact that despite the fumbles, I did love the look of what we saw out of the Broncos two-headed rush game. And I think those guys are going to have a similar success against a team that got 161 yards put on him. Now, granted, on 31 carries and one of the best running backs in the league, if not the best, depending on your opinion. I still think those running backs are going to have a lot of success in this matchup, and that's a big reason why I think the Broncos are going to come out on top of this one.
The Arizona Cardinals are taking on the Vegas Raiders in the final of our Sunday evening matchup. Yeah, Tim, I share your sentiment. The
I don't know
Cardinals
how to feel
just
about the Cardinals.
the Cardinals just didn't look great. Typically,
Was it a double XP weekend?
hey, they're in midseason form right now. They're in about to completely fall apart mode if they don't really. Yeah,
The Chiefs' defense is it's not terrible, but it's not like as shut down as the Cardinals' offense kind of made it look.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I like what we saw out of the Raiders, even with a lot of those turnovers that we saw that very likely could happen against that Chargers defense. I like the Raiders a lot more in terms of the offense.
I like how Davante Adams looked. I didn't like.
You didn't like that it was in a black and silver uniform.
He's still my favorite player in the
You
league,
didn't
man.
like that he outperformed and out-received the entirety of Green Bay's wide receiver.
Come on, let it out. Let it out of your system. Go ahead.
I'm just making some observations, but I think
Some
that's a big reason
observational
why.
humor at the Green Bay Packers' expense. Hey, I still love Davante Adams, but
I mean, hey, given the fact that the Bears have a winning record and the Packers do not, I have to, take
Tim, that's the next
my.
game that we're gonna cover. We're on the Cardinals and the Raiders, and
No,
I'm
but that's
taking
that's
the
the whole
Raiders.
reason. Yes, that's the whole reason why I like the Raiders in this one. Their offense looks a lot better. I think Derek Carr will have substantially less turnovers, and just be able to be a lot more comfortable in this game. So Raiders by plenty.
Yeah. And now we're getting to Bears Packers in Lambeau on Sunday Night Football. And somehow the 1-0 Chicago Bears are taking on the 0-1 Green Bay Packers.
I mean, obviously, even I didn't see this coming. You know me, I have very little faith in the Bears at all times, and I still think they won that game because of the weather, not because of the team.
Yeah, but then again, Green Bay letting people down week one and then kind of just like getting their head back on their shoulders and fixing things week two is just kind of what they do. So Packers by a million, or I jump off a bridge.
I'm not going to say Packers by a million, but I will say Packers, and here's why. First game for the Bears, Elijah Mitchell goes out early. Obviously, the passing game is a nightmare. They were able to box a lot of what the 49ers had going for them. I think A.J. Dillon has a big chance of eating just with his general, rushing style. Not saying Aaron Jones won't have a good game, but I really like A.J. Dillon's matchup here against the Bears.
I think this matchup gives both running backs room to eat. And I think that's what the Packers need to do better. We didn't really involve Aaron Jones that much against Minnesota.
No, and I was kind of surprised by that.
For whatever reason. And I think just using him a little bit more in general and using him the way we know how to be used, while also keeping up that volume for A.J. Dillon, can take some pressures off of the young receiving core because they still really do need to figure stuff out.
Also, you have the general friendly reminder of look what Packers week one last year was, and look at the season they still had. I'm not that worried about them yet. If they continue to struggle on offense like that, then we'll have some words about it. But
If they
I
lose to Chicago, then it's time to throw up a red flag because
uh-oh.
Chicago hasn't beaten us since 2018, and I don't plan on that starting now. So
We'll
we
see.
got we got two more games to run through, two games on Monday night, the first of which being the Tennessee Titans taking on the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, I think I owe the Buffalo Bills an apology because they looked fantastic. Yeah, there's really not much more to say. Josh Allen's a beast. Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis are as nasty as ever. They don't really need a running game, even though their run game's kind of a mess. Josh Allen can be their run game by themselves.
Even Singletary didn't even look that bad. Singletary looks
And
better than he usually did.
and the difference that like you don't need a secondary really when you're hitting the quarterback within 2-3 seconds. So
Their pass rush looks pretty
and
mean.
with the way that the Titans collapsed last week, there's really no way I can't not take Buffalo. I got the Bills.
It's very possible that we might be seeing the beginning of age showing on Derrick Henry. We saw him get absolutely laid out by Tay Crowder last week, and he did not have a fantastic game. I'm not saying that he won't have good games still this season, but
The mileage definitely takes its toll.
I'm not convinced that he's going to be as dominant as he has been in the past.
Oh,
And
I'm
for
not
that
convinced
reason,
either. I was not convinced at the start of the season.
yeah, it's one of those where I really think that the Titans offense has got the beginnings of some red flags to be raising. And I think it's really a no-brainer that the Bills are still the Bills. So.
If only at some point in the season the Tennessee Titans could make some sort of drastic offensive change, but I don't know where they're going to find that at. But maybe if what could might.
Just wait. Jeremy McNichols is coming back at some point. Don't worry.
Woo! Derrick Henry, Dontrell Hilliard, Jeremy McNichols. That's the three-headed monster that's going to carry the Titans to the playoffs.
Yep, that's it.
For our final game of the week, we got the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles. Both of these teams had pretty good week ones.
Yeah.
This Vikings team, this offense, this is the most explosive Vikings offense that I've seen in a long, long time. Funny what happens when you actually like open up the field and you use the dynamic playmakers that you have. And Kirk Cousins isn't a bad quarterback, and he'll get the ball to Justin Jefferson and pretty much only Justin Jefferson. But you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
If he keeps getting open.
Well, is there anybody that can cover him?
We'll see. Is there anybody on the Eagles that can cover him? No.
Maybe.
I'm gonna tell you right now, no.
Maybe.
Not with any more success than the Packers had.
That's a great point, and that's why I don't plan on it. Justin Jefferson is going over 2,100 yards this season. You can book it. And the Minnesota Vikings are winning week 2.
Yeah, I think the big thing for this one is I liked what we saw out of the Vikings offense, but also out of their defense week 1. And we saw the Eagles obviously have a pretty high flying offense, but
letting up 35 points against Detroit is kind of like.
I'm not convinced of saying that was because of the Detroit's offense just being that much better. I'm not so sure if we can trust the Eagles defense yet to come up with, the big stops against good offensive teams when they need to. So I think I have the Vikings in this one as well.
And that's all we got for our week 2 NFL predictions. Hopefully we do a little bit better than last week. But then again, week 1 shows you a lot of weird things.
Welcome to the NFL.
That you think you know, but you don't know. And that's why we make these videos, because it's fun and we're probably wrong. But if you want more from us, we'll have.
Tell us just how wrong we are.
Oh yeah, let's come watch how wrong we are. It's great. It's a great time. We got college football content.
We might as well just call this NFL predictions freezing cold takes.
We could do that. Now, Tim, may I continue the outro?
Go ahead.
Sure. We got a bunch of stuff all over the world of sports. College football, fantasy football, NFL football. A lot of football. It's football season. Football! And if you want more content from us, like and subscribe. And until next time, we out.